Why do people come to us to have animated scenes?
A lot of the stuff we can't go out and film because it's too dangerous for a lot of these things, whether it be chemical spillages or working from height. We can't set up a dangerous situation for somebody just to film it. So animation is really good for doing that. Today we're talking about animation production and how we approach creating a full series of explainer animations for test consulting. The challenge with this project was taking quite technical energy and sustainability services, simplifying the messaging and turning it into content that felt engaging, modern and social first, without becoming overly corporate. So we'll break down the creative process, how we developed animation style, and also some of the lessons we learned around scripting, animatics, and client collaboration throughout the project.
As with every film that we make, script is the most important thing to start off with. So tell us a bit about animated projects, of how, especially particularly this one, of how that kind of the process works with test.
Yeah, so once we got the idea of obviously what Test wanted in terms of their videos, this was a series of 4 that they wanted. So one was an overview and then others went more in depth into some of their services. For this one, and it happens sometimes, but the client, some clients, and it's no fault of theirs, it's no fault of the scripts, they just find it hard to visualize when they see it's just words on paper. So as much as I can describe what's going to be happening, there was a lot of back and forth, and in terms of like whether they thought all the information in there was going to be right, whether they just couldn't see it. So until I then had to jump into an animatic a bit earlier than normal, just to sort of give them something to look at. As soon as I did that, as rough as it may have been, the client was like, yeah, great, I can visualize that now, I can see what's happening. And there were still changes, but they were much happier in sort of seeing something on the screen, so we could move that process forward then. That bit of the process changed from then on, really. Like, I've kind of molded scripting and animatics sort of a bit more together in projects since then.
Yes, because in animation, you're essentially creating something from nothing.
Yeah.
If we're filming on a site and we're filming on the client site, they go there every day. They know what it's going to look like. They know that we're going to come with 1 or 2 cameras, a drone, or whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
And they could imagine themselves or their colleagues standing in that place and talking about X, Y, and Z.
Totally, yeah.
With animation, especially something like this that is talking about solar stuff, and you've got a visual representation of what they do. How do they know what they want, and how much do you kind of give them a steer on it, whether it's other stuff that we've done or what you think would work for them?
This was a bit of both at this point, I think, because we didn't have as many of our own styles at that point. Now we've got quite a catalogue of styles that we've tried over the past and collected that we can send to clients. At this point, we had a few. I looked at their website and their branding, so their colours and their sort of they're quite rounded fonts and kind of rounded icons that they had. So I kind of had a sense of what might work. So I put a few images together that they could look at, and they sort of picked what they liked. And then I went away and sort of created a unique kind of selection of styles based on, again, on their branding and their colours that they could look at and pick from. I remember looking at their logo, and it's got like a circular graphic with like a gradient on it, which gave me the idea to use this sort of animated dot in the middle of the screen that kind of opens up and everything kind of comes out of that and kind of refreshes. And I liked the idea of big hands coming in that sort of represent test, and they come in and sort of interact with the dot and interact with the icon and stuff like that. So it kind of grew from there, really. So again, you can give a client an idea from these things in terms of how it's going to look, but sometimes they just need that bit of an extra helping hand. And the animatics are great for that, because they're very sketchy and they're very rough, but they give a good idea of timing. They give a good idea of imagery. For me as well, like, it really helps to sort of get all that laid out, and then we can sort of iron out all the creases as much as possible at that point, really.
What I've kind of noticed as well, a lot of the animation that we do or that you end up running is more longer form animation, where it's talking about what the company do, like an overview thing. So they do run for a good number of minutes. But what I think that you do really well is something's always changing or moving. There's some sort of transition or integrating the text to me moving, like little micro events to constantly keep people engaged with it. You're kind of pulling them along, whether it's up, down, left, right, forward, back, whatever it might be, because you can still get bored in whatever amount of whatever the video is. Yeah,
it's amazing what something as simple as like a little camera move or a little twinkle of something or a little tiny movement just keeps that interest. Because I know if I'm watching something, I'll get a bit anxious if it's not moving after a little bit. So I know that the other people at home must get turned off or bored of it. So yeah, it is. It's just like it's realizing that we can't put so much detail and everything moving and fully fledged, like, Disney style animation into all these things all the time. But it's knowing that we can add simple little things, simple little camera moves, simple things moving in the background, or a simple little move of a character that can just keep everything alive, and will keep everything flowing then for the audiences then. So, but there's also so many different ways that things can be animated. So I'll tend to do little animation tests, which is basically me starting the animation process. But it gives me an idea of how things are going to move, and then it can give the client an idea of how things are going to move.
So a lot of times when we work on a project, there'll be several videos as part of the project. And you can kind of, once you've created the style and the assets, you can reuse them. So essentially does it work that the first one takes the longest and then the others are quicker? How does that kind of work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Every time with the series, the first one definitely always takes the longest, because you are literally starting from scratch. You've got nothing. You're working from that blank piece of paper. But once you found that style, and once we've found, normally I'll work on the first video as one whole thing, so we can get a sense of the whole and how that whole video is going to look. And then once that one's done, more often than not, the videos after that can work a bit more concurrently, because we know how they're looking, we know how they're feeling, we know the client's happy. And again, as you go along, you build up an asset library. So, as I say, by the time, sometimes when we get to like the third and the fourth video, the animatic essentially becomes a very basic form of the animation, using the assets we've already got or whatever it might be, and then build it up from there, really. So we can sort of really, the process gets quicker and quicker as the series and go along, really.
In general, why do people come to us to have animated scenes?
A lot of the stuff we can't go out and film because it's too dangerous for a lot of these things, whether it be chemical spillages or working from height or working on, ships or anything like that. Like, we can't necessarily go out and film it because A, it's impractical, or B, we can't set up a dangerous situation for somebody just to film it. So animation is really good for doing that, and getting sort of concise information across, really. They can also really break up videos. If you've got a big live action video, it might be nice just to have little animated segments in between that kind of breaks it up, and just sort of show something in a different way, really.
Because we've done a lot of health and safety inductions where we've gone to film 5 out of 15 different scenes.
Yeah.
But then the 5 others, some of them you listed, including sort of drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Or radiation, whatever it might be, we can't do. So we've kind of still used their branding and some nice transition to get it from live action into animation and then back out.
Exactly. Yeah.
And especially when it's something that could be 10 to 15 minutes, I think it really helps the engagement so people aren't so bored looking at the same thing.
Yeah, it just breaks things up.
This suddenly looks really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, you can find a style that sort of blends everything together a bit more with colours and fonts and things. So yeah, I think it can be really useful for anything like that, really. And like you say, especially health and safety stuff where it's, like I say, it's dangerous situations or anything that's just a lot of heavy information. It can sometimes be a lot easier to get across when it's sort of broken down in a animation style, really, or a concise style. So yeah, there's lots of reasons and lots of ways we can use animation, really, which is great. Hopefully this gives a bit more insight into how we approach animation projects, especially when the subject matter is quite technical or information heavy. A big part of the process for us is figuring out how to simplify messaging without losing the important detail, and then building a visual style that keeps people engaged long enough to actually absorb the information. If you want us to break down more animation workflows, motion graphics projects, or how we approach explainer content for technical industries, let us know and we'll cover more of it in future videos.